Add records and group of fields. Okay, here we have an example of how to add lines in a group of fields based on a pre-filter. I guess we remember what a pre-filter is. Basically, when we create a prefix, we can set up a pre-filter for that prefix, where we can indicate some conditions that have to be met in order for that prefix to display one or several elements in the prefix field. So let's imagine I create a prefix field, and in this prefix field I have a pre-filter, and in my pre-filter I indicate that the condition is that the status field in the record of the customers must be equal to active. If it's not active, I don't want it to be displayed. So when someone's interacting with this prefix in a form, they're only going to see these three customer records, okay? Of Juan, of Anne, and of Mike. So we can use this prefix in a group of fields. For example, here we have a customer prefix, and we can use the pre-filter to add lines to the group of fields based on this condition. So let's say I click on this button that says Add Customer, and this is going to allow me to fill in the group of fields based on this pre-filter that I've created or an existing relationship. We'll see that later. In this case, the button Add Customer has a system task configured with this functionality. When it's executed, it's going to add as many lines to the group of fields as family records are matching the required conditions, that the status is active. So I click on the button, it evaluates all the different possibilities, and it adds a line for each element that meets those requirements. Now here we have the configuration. Basically what we're going to do is select the type of system task uploader with a function as record in group of fields, and then we're going to click on create new uploading. Once we've done this, this window pops up where we can say, first, in which group of fields in the panel do I want to create these lines? Second, it has to have a prefix because based on this prefix, we're going to add lines. And third, which is the pre-filter? The pre-filter is going to allow us to delimit the number of elements that are going to be loaded into the group of fields. If we don't have a pre-filter, or we have a pre-filter with no conditions, if my family has 300 elements, it's going to upload 300 lines in my group of fields. Now here we can see another example. In this case, we've selected a group of fields in the panel, a prefix, but down here we selected relation instead of pre-filter. When we select relation, I'm going to have to select another prefix, and here the type of relation that exists between this family here of this prefix and this other family here of this other prefix. Okay, and then the system task is going to create a line in the group of fields for each element, in this case it's a service, related to the element of the selected order. So let's say here in this prefix, I have an order and it's related with several services. Well then, all these services are going to be uploaded to the group of fields. Well, not all of them, the services that are related to the order. And then there's a specific configuration when I'm trying to create lines based on accounts or contacts. This is a specific configuration that only appears when I'm selecting an account. So the system is going to allow me to create lines in the group of fields per each account, and besides per each contact that has been created per each one of these accounts. So let's say, for example, I have two accounts, and in one account I have 3 employees, and in the other account I have 2 employees. When I click on the button or when I trigger the system task, it's going to create 2 lines per each account. So here we have one line for the account CNN, another line for the account Dell. And besides these, it's going to create another line for each one of its contacts. So there's 3 lines for CNN, created for Jim, Maria, and Sarah, these 3 contacts. And there's 2 lines that have been created for Dell, Nick and David, these two here. Here we can see a third example where we're adding lines to group of fields based on accounts and context. So here we again select the group of fields in the panel where we want to create these lines. Here we select the prefix of accounts in this case. And when we select the prefix of accounts, here it's going to offer us this option. This option is not available when we select other different types of families, only for the family of accounts. And it's going to ask us, do we want to create a line per each contact? If we say yes, then the line per each contact is going to be created. If we mark the option no, then only a line for each account is going to be created. Okay. And then here we could limit the amount of options that are going to appear based on pre-filters or relations, but that's the same as what we just saw earlier. Now, what happens when we want to add lines to an affiliated group of fields? An affiliated group of fields, remember, it's a group of fields inside of another group of fields. So let's say I have a parent group of fields that's called customers, where I have these three lines. Now, I want to create lines inside of the affiliated group of fields of this group of fields. Okay, for example, maybe I want to create lines in an affiliated group of fields that's called invoices. So all I have to take into account is that in order to create lines in an affiliated group of fields, first, the parent group of fields has to be created. Sorry, it has to have some values. So let's say this group of fields is empty. There's no way I could create values in the affiliated group of fields. But if we already have three lines, no problem. We can create whatever values we want, whatever lines we want in the affiliated group of fields. Anyways, this isn't going to be a problem because when we're performing operations with system tasks, we could say, okay, the first operation is bring all my accounts that meet a certain condition to my group of fields. And the second operation could be bring to the affiliated group of fields that's called invoices, all the invoices of each one of these accounts. Okay. Here we have a fourth example of how to add lines to an affiliated group of fields. So the first thing we're going to do here is select an affiliated group of fields in the panel. So instead of selecting a group of fields, we're going to select an affiliated group of fields. Afterwards, we can select a prefix, for example, of accounts or of any other family. And then here, based on pre-filters or relations, we're going to bring all those lines to the affiliated group of fields. We're going back to this form where we prepared all these examples. And now I'm going to click on a button that's going to create lines in this group of fields based on the employees that I have in my application. But it's going to have a pre-filter. It's going to have a condition. The language of the employee must be, I think it's English or Spanish, I don't remember. But anyways, let's click on the button and see what happens. So I click on add pre-filtered lines. I'm in update because I haven't marked the option to automatically update. Okay, forgot here. It's going to take into account, it's going to compare with this employee language. So first I have to select an employee here. For example, this one here. So if the language is English, when I click on the button, it's only going to bring me the employees that have the language English in their records. So I'm going to click on this button, and there we can see it brought all these employees. Basically, it brought all of them because they all have English in their record. A total of 8 employees. Let's check the family employees. And yes, we have a total of 8. We brought all of them, but that's because they're all meeting the condition. Now let's do this. Let's do this again. 1 second. I want to delete these lines. Okay. So we have no lines here, and I'm going to change the language of Anna to be Spanish. So I'll enter this record, and I'll say Anna. Here we have her language. It's not going to allow me to change it. I'll have to change it in structure. 1 second, please. Okay, now I can select between both languages. So I'm going back to her record. There we go. So now we only have one employee with the language in Spanish. I'm going to select it again. So let's say I select here AP1. We can see the language is Spanish. And now when I click on this button, it should add all the employees whose language is Spanish. So I click here, and we can see it's only adding one. Okay, let's see how we've configured this button, because until now we've been creating, for example, a new line, but this creation was done with an upload. This one here is just uploading it's just updating the last line. This one is updating existing lines, updating lines with conditions, but here we're doing something a little bit different. We're creating lines based on prefilters or based on family elements. So here I've created one, but if we change the language here, let's select another one. Okay, since the language is English, now when I click on this button, it's going to also add all the employees that have English in their record. Okay, so the way of configuring this button would be selecting system task. Here where we selected the type uploader, add records in group of fields, and we clicked here on create a new uploading. When we click on this window pops up. I'm going to open the one that's already configured, and it allows us to select the group of fields where we want to store the information, store the new lines that are created, the prefix, and down here I selected a pre-filter. So I have a pre-filter that's created. It's called Spanish language. Okay, and now let's see the conditions of my pre-filter. So I'm going to the dictionary of terms. Let's see, the group of fields is called affected destination. I'm going to look for affected. It's a group of fields. Okay, here we go. It has a prefix field inside of the group of fields. And in this prefix field, there's a pre-filter. And the pre-filter has a condition. It says only adds if language is Spanish, for example. And here are the conditions. It says the field actually is dynamic because it's saying the field language has to be equal to this suffix called employee language. So basically what it's saying is the field inside of the record, so the language inside of the record of the employees, has to be the same as this suffix here. So it's dynamic. Depending on the value of this suffix, it's going to load the employees into this group of fields. Okay, going back here. So here we have our pre-filter condition. The language of the employees must be equal to the suffix language. Okay, if that condition is met, then the employee is going to be uploaded in the group of fields. Before you continue with the presentation, I recommend you to pause the video and start the first part of the exercise.